What are the ideas that excite you? Or is it just customers?
Customers first.
Yeah.
Second is the last century, a company, if you want to grow, I believe you should find a good opportunity. But today, this world never lack opportunity. But today, if you want to be a great company, think about what problem you can solve. It's not to catch the opportunity. It's about solving the social problems. Because company like Alibaba, we're growing so fast, it's very difficult for one opportunity that can make us last. Such an organization with the power by internet, with millions of SMEs, with 400 million consumers, what kind of problem you can solve? And I'm excited. Anything you mentioned about cloud computing and talking about the mobile things, anything that's happened in the USA is going to happen in China.
There is an amazing degree to which people's ambitions get beaten out of them in these top universities. If I look at what people thought my senior year in high school, sort of like were very ambitious, they had all these ideas what they were going to do, and if you looked at the same people at sort of college plus 5 years, sort of 9 years later, let's say, it was amazing how much things have been ratcheted down. So I do think there's something problematic where all the talented people go to these schools, they're sort of evaluated on the same terms, and at the end a lot of ambitions are beaten out of them. And probably the one that I think is even worse for people than Harvard in this respect might be Caltech, where you have these brilliant math, physics people, and after 4 years where you're in the middle of your class, you're convinced that the most you can do with your life is become a line engineer at Lockheed, and maybe you can go into mid-level management 20 years later. And so that's sort of is characteristic of what I think has happened, and what I think we need to somehow find a way back to is this idea that that there's not just a single track, that there are very different things you can do. The question, what truth do you know that nobody agrees with you on? The sort of career version of this is what are you really good at that other people aren't that good at, or something like that, and that somehow gets discouraged by this incredible homogenization.
And big ambitions get discouraged, I think. Don't you think? Everyone, and it's true of all of us, I suppose, we decide we can make it in a certain line and do things a little, move ahead step by step, but the kind of...
Yeah, there's always
the ambition to be a founder, that seems to be knocked out. Both the institutions and the mindset that permeates the institutions is almost a denial that ambition is reasonable or even possible.
Well, there's a sense that there are all these people who are ahead of you, so there's always this sense there's so many people who are much better or just as good as you, so who are you to think that you can do anything different? And obviously, when everybody starts to think that, nobody does anything, and in fact, it becomes self-fulfilling.
For me, so much of the lesson that I feel like I've learned is, I feel like it's really hard to decide to start a company, right? Facebook, I didn't start it to start a company. I started it because I really wanted this thing personally, and I believed that it should exist globally, although I wasn't quite sure that we would be able to play a role in doing that. It was mostly just through kind of like wanting to build it and having it be this hobby and getting people around me excited that it eventually kind of evolved into and got the momentum to become a company. But I never really understood the psychology of deciding that you want to start a company before you understand what you want to do. And this gets back to the question of why did we first open at colleges that had competitors? I have this big fear, I think, of getting locked into doing things that aren't actually the most impactful things. To me, this is like the trait that entrepreneurs have, is they just have this like laser-like ability to go find where they can have the most impact. And when you take on a new project, especially if you hire people or start a company, you're doing that project. And there are obviously different ways that it can exit and all that, but I think having the flexibility to explore a lot of different things, which you can do when you're in college, which is one of the amazing things about being in college, is you can work on all these hobbies and code a lot of stuff and try a lot of different things. It's this amazing flexibility that I think most people take for granted. And once you decide, okay, I'm going to start a company and I'm going to do it with someone else, you immediately now need to convince someone else if you want to change your mind on something. And I think people really undervalue the option value and flexibility. I think explore what you want to do before committing is really like the key thing, and keep yourself flexible. No, I think that's Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, but I think and you can definitely do that within the framework of a company, but I think you have to be wary about starting a company too rigidly, because you're going to change what you do. I mean, people talk about pivots all the time as if it's like your thing didn't work, so you pivoted. Facebook pivoted many times. It's just that, you know, we were college, and then we were not college, and then we were just a website, and then we were a platform, right? And you're going to change what you do.
There's another word for the kind of pivots you were talking about, expansions.
Well,
right? That's not what people usually mean by pivoting.
Well, you know,
I think that's really important, especially for young people, to actually do that self-assessment and find that passion. Do you have any advice?
I think many kids and many grown-ups do figure out over time what their passions are. And sometimes we let I don't think it's that hard. I think what happens though sometimes is that we let our intellectual selves overrule those passions. And so that's what needs to be guarded against. Kids are very good about knowing what their passions are.
I love that, because I think I've seen you describe this way, that you've always maintained that sense of wonder. I think that's what kids have, but we lose it somehow along the way.
Yes, everybody, it's a gift if you can keep your childlike sense of wonder. And it helps with creativity, it helps to have fun. You know, you laugh more and play more if you keep that childlike sense of wonder. What we're really focused on is thinking long term, putting the customer at the center of our universe, and inventing. Those are the three big ideas. I don't think that you can invent on behalf of customers unless you're willing to think long term, because a lot of invention doesn't work. If you're going to invent, it means you're going to experiment, you have to think long term. So these three ideas, customer centricity, long-term thinking, and a passion for invention,